tell me about a time you made a mistake. What is the logic behind asking this question?
Okay, so what the interviewer ideally wants to understand is how you mitigated the mistake mainly, right? So mistake is something that we all make. So we are all humans, we'll all make mistakes, as we shared in our previous videos as well. So the thought process over here is that you have made a mistake. What was the action you took over it? And what was the solution that you found for it? And was that a permanent solution? Right? So these are basics that the interviewer ideally is seeing as to how you navigate through a particular mistake that you have made, right? So that is the logic, or that is the reason of why they would ask you this question.
What should be the ideal response according to you?
Sure. So the way you should respond to this question should have a very thoughtful kind of a process, right? It should be structured and thoughtful on how you respond to this particular question. So the way I would do it is I would use something called as a STAR method, right? So when I say a STAR method, I'm speaking about a situation. So that ideally would be the S of it. So I'm going to explain the interviewer of what the situation was, what was the situation in which I ended up making that mistake. Then the next thing is the task, right? So I'm going to say as to what were the tasks, how was it divided, who did it, how did we work towards it, and so on and so forth. The third thing ideally would be the action. Right? So what was the action that was, so mistake was made, there was tasks defined, what was the action that we took on that particular mistake? I mean, how did we work towards it, right? And mainly the fourth one is the result. So what was the outcome or the result of this particular mistake, and how did and what did we do to ensure that this does not happen again? So these are the 4 steps in which I would ideally explain. So the ideal response would be different for different experiences in this particular question, right? Now, say for example, if I was a fresher, so I would give an example of a mistake that I made while I was in college.
Can you give an example of when you were in college?
Sure. So, while I was doing my post-graduation, I was the leader of the class. So what I mean by that is, as you call it, as some people call it as a monitor, some people call it as a leader or whatever. So I was managing all the issues that were there in the class. So what happened was that we were facing a challenge with our marketing professor, the professor who taught us marketing, right? So the entire class reached out to me and said that we are just not understanding this particular subject. We are tending to miss out on a lot of critical aspects in this. While the professor is teaching this, so we don't understand what he's saying. So what I did was I immediately reached out to the head of the department and I said that the whole class has reached out to me and there is a problem in this particular professor and we are not able to understand what he's saying. Now, was that a mistake? Yes, it was a mistake. It took me a day to understand that. I went back home, I thought about it, and then I realized that no, I have made a mistake because I have not really spoken to the professor about it directly, and I should have done that. So what I did was the next day, I immediately walked up to the HOD and I said that while I have raised it across to you, can I try to solve this whole thing? Because I don't think it is that big of an issue. It might not be that big of an issue. So the HOD said, okay, go ahead, give it a shot. So I walked up to the professor and I had a one-to-one discussion with the professor wherein I told him that, the whole class has reached out to me and they're facing a challenge in terms of understanding. Can you try changing your style of teaching? And believe me, he was such a fantastic and experienced guy. He came up with 2-3 different styles of teaching the same particular subject. And not only that, I also reached out to all my colleagues, all my peer students, and I did tell them that in case in future, if there is a question that you have, don't keep it in your mind. Feel free to ask because he's very open to explain the same topic 100 times, right? So what I actually did was I was a bridge between the students and the professor. And believe me, things changed drastically and it was a win-win for everyone out there. I then reached out to the HOD and let him know that this issue has got resolved.
Okay. Now let's say there is a person who has, maybe 4 to 5 years of experience in this industry. How would that person respond?
Okay, so the ideal response that needs to be given for someone who's not in a leadership role, right, would be more in terms of the process that they're working in. So when you're working on a particular process, you end up making mistakes and that is okay. So what the example that I would ideally share would be that I was working on this particular process where I ended up making a mistake and this mistake was not cotton quality and it directly went on to the client, which led to an impact. So what I did was I reached out to my even before it went to the client, I reached out to my boss, and we started working on a mitigation plan for the same. So what we did was we created some tool in which every request that was going to the client would start getting checked. So I got in touch with the IT team. We worked together in creating this tool that every request that is moving towards the client would ideally get checked 100% in terms of quality. Now, when this happened, this was a foolproof mechanism to ensure that this mistake is not repeated again. Now, what has happened over here is I've spoken about the mistake. I've said that I have worked on an analysis and a tool for this particular thing. It also showed my partnership because I reached out to the IT team and I worked with the IT team together, and we worked towards making this particular tool. It also led to great client satisfaction because now the client is getting requests which are 100% clear or 100% accurate, right? So this becomes a win-win solution for a question that comes in that way. For somebody who's like, a 3, 4, 5 years of experience who's still not in the leadership role.
Okay. And how should a person in a leadership role respond?
See, I spoke to you about the STAR methodology, right? So irrespective the person is a fresher or someone who's slightly tenured or someone who's into a leadership role, should ideally follow the STAR methodology. Now, if I was asked this question and if I had to respond to this question in a leadership role, what I would speak about is the projects that I have worked upon. So say, for example, there was a project which had a particular deadline and I started working on the project, and while I was working on it, I realized that I have missed out on a very critical detail in that project, which might impact the deadline of the project. Now, as soon as I realized this happened, I immediately reached out to my boss and the client, and I said that we have missed out on capturing this particular detail, due to which this project deadline could ideally get impacted. However, we will work towards still achieving the targets within the deadline. Now, what I did was I reached out to my team members. I got all the team members together. We as a team split our responsibilities, and we were still able to achieve this particular task within the deadline. Now, even with the critical detail that we missed out on, so we included that and we were able to achieve the target within the deadline. Now, post that, what we also did was I created a complete checklist, which was like a project management checklist, to ensure that we do not miss out on such instances, or we do not have such instances in the future, and we do not miss out on any critical detail when a project is assigned and we are able to complete it within the delivery timeline. Right. So this is an example that somebody can give in terms if they are into a leadership role or a management role. This would be an appropriate response to give. Now, what happens in this is that I have covered all the aspects in this. I said there was a problem. I said there was a solution to it. We worked on a solution. We worked on mitigating the whole thing, and we also created a checklist to ensure that this problem is not repeated again. Right. So this was a mistake that was made, and it was rectified to the end.
तो ये ऐसा example होता है.
जैसे
हम देख सकते हैं.
Exactly, and there is no rule book for an example, right? So जब आप मुझे एक सवाल पूछते हो कि what was the mistake that you made, you cannot read a rule book and say अच्छा दिनेश ने ये गलती की थी तो मैं भी यही गलती के बारे में बताऊंगा. So it is a mistake that you have made, that you have realized is a mistake, and you have rectified it.
Right. So real life examples.
The real life example is what is more necessary.
Interviewers also ask, what other companies are you interviewing with? Is it okay to give an honest answer?
For this particular question, right, it's very important to strike a balance between professionalism and transparency. So when an interviewer has asked you this question of why, of have you applied for any other roles, it's absolutely okay to be transparent with the interviewer and tell him or her that yes, I have applied for some positions in some other organizations, and I have gone to the second round of interview with these organizations. However, I would not be comfortable divulging the information of which organization this is for confidentiality purposes, right? So you have to explain that to the interviewer. And I think the second important thing also is that you also have to highlight that while you have gone to these specific interviews, why is it that you still want to work with this particular organization? So so even before you go for an interview, you would obviously look at all the details of the organization and the company that you're getting interviewed for, right? So you have to align yourself with that, and you have to say that the reason I would want to work with this particular organization is only because of the fact that my goals align with the organizational goals, and I would want to enhance my career out here. So I think that would be the most appropriate answer that you can give for this kind of a question that comes in.
Okay. So be honest in saying yes. However, do not disclose the name of the companies you're going with.
Absolutely. You should not disclose the names of the companies that you're getting interviewed with. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you have found it helpful and insightful. If you have, do not forget to click on the like button and subscribe and hit the bell icon too, so that you get to know about all the future videos that we would be uploading. And do not forget to share it with all of your friends who need support in tackling interviews. All the best.